Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to Pure Finesse. With the host, Jacob Murderson, and the man to my left, who I think does not have a hair out of place for a Sunday night in June.
Call me
Welcome,
Kyle
brother.
Bukakis, right? Uh,
Yeah, the second coming of Rick Astley, actually, Kyle Bukauskas.
Bukakis, whatever, man. Um, Before we start off this episode, I just think it's something I want to acknowledge is that I don't know if you heard it, you probably did. Is that Taya Curry was the first female selected in the OHL draft? As Jay wakes up here, coming from a nap, she's the first female ever to be drafted in the OHL draft, and that's just I think one step forward for women's sports and for a woman to be integrated into like male sports, which I think is going to happen in some way, shape, or form in the near future. So I just want to congratulate her on that. We're not going to be talking about that today, though, are we, Jay?
Yeah, I
Like,
know.
no hockey
What a
today.
tease, but it is the first round of the NBA we're going to be talking about
Yeah.
today, and all the series that happened, and the one that just ended tonight. If you're watching on Sunday, the matinee between the Clippers and Mavericks finished off their series, and the LA Clippers, to the chagrin of probably most of the NBA, rallied to come back from 0-2 down and win Game 7. Game 7 was the only game won by the home team this series,
Yeah.
and I think this is the first time ever that all the road team won all the first 6 games
Hmm.
playoff series. And you know what is it? Pandemic Paul, as Pandemic P, Paul George, seen it bounce back from an early struggle, and you can't bet against LeBron in the playoffs, which we'll get to soon, I'm sure. You can't bet against Kawhi in the playoffs.
No, and there's a different pandemic P that came out, and that's Kristaps Porzingis. He didn't play in this series. He was kind of lackluster. Didn't really show up. Luca had to put his team on his back in this series, averaging 35 points, 8 boards, and 10.3 assists. Just almost triple double every game. So I think that's ridiculous. And saw tonight Marcus Morris actually joined elite company of hitting 7 plus 3 pointers in
Game seven.
a game 7, and that's tying Steph Curry himself. So only Marcus Morris and Steph Curry have done that. So key guys stepping up, not just Kawhi and Paul George, but other guys stepping up today to win this. Because the Clippers, I think they're due to make a long playoff run because they haven't won anything for I think ever. So
Yeah, for as long as they've been around, they haven't been they've been deemed as like good teams, but just not able
yeah,
to get over the hump. And just I think they haven't made a conference finals in
no,
a ever,
I
or at
don't think
least in the
ever.
21st century, let alone the finals. And they've had all these great teams. If you want to talk about La Lob City era, like they've always been
Yeah,
having 50 plus wins every season for most of the 2000s. So I think this probably will be the year for them. I know they're going to have to play the Jazz in round
it'd
two,
be
which
a
will
tough one.
not be the easiest of teams to play. But we're going to have to wait another year for the Battle of LA,
Yeah,
because the Phoenix Suns took care of business and defeated the Los Angeles Lakers in six,
yeah.
4-2. I think we got to put some respect. Can we put some respect now on the two-seeded Phoenix Suns, as a lot of people did not have them winning this series.
I think a lot of people. I think it's just because LeBron James, right? No one can really bet against LeBron James, but Devin Booker really showed up in that game 6. I think I had 47 points. Just went off. He's like, I'm on a mission. I'm going to prove you all wrong. In this series, I think a lot of people recognize that Anthony Davis is now made of glass because
Street
he's just,
Clothes Davis.
pardon?
Anthony Street
Street
Clothes.
clothes. Street clothes Davis, exactly. He just, I don't know. I hate to see people get injured and everything, but it just seems he gets injured just far more often than any other player in this league. And
Kind of like you,
uh,
kind of a liability, one or the other, right? It's a foregone conclusion.
yeah, yeah. And but does this like this is the big question, right? Does this uh first round series loss at the age of 36 affects LeBron's legacy and his conversation in the GOAT debate?
Well, I did not like the way he handled himself after the Game 6 loss. I don't know. Oh, LeBron, gives a little bit of a sports crowd every time you bring his name up. But the way he conducted himself after, not shaking people's hands after losing in Game 6. But we saw the picture in the back, in the locker rooms with him and Devin Booker, signed his jersey, la di da, behind closed doors. But they frustrated the hell out of him this series. Jay Crowder did a fantastic job. We talk about every time we talk about Phoenix or Utah how underrated Jay Crowder is. Jay Crowder is a player. Shoot, he's a prototypical 3 and D guy. I think I've said maybe 15 times on this podcast.
Yeah.
It just proves me right every time. And teams that have Jay Crowder just go places. And I think Phoenix is going to be making the conference finals, and they're going to be playing next the Denver Nuggets, who I believe they beat the Trailblazers in 6 games.
Yeah.
Probably the most dangerous Damian Lillard we've seen ever.
Yeah, 100%. Where he went off, got 55 points, and his team still couldn't win that game in double OT. Jokic just going off. He was averaging what? He was just doing MVP type things: 33 points, 10.5 boards, and 4.5 assists. And he was going up against Dame, who was averaging more points: 34 points and 10.2 assists. Dame was doing everything he could to make his team win, and they just weren't able to pull it off. And that's also another question: does he leave this franchise now, or does he stay loyal? He's been loyal for 9 years, and he did say the coach he wanted was Jason Kidd, and Jason Kidd has actually backed out of the head coaching, like getting the job for the Portland Trail Blazers. So does Dame leave? I think it's time that he moves on from this franchise.
I don't think so. I think the move to fire
Really?
Terry Stotts, I think keeps Damian Lillard in Portland. I mean, I don't know if they have the right pieces just yet. I mean, they have some good young players and a good veteran presence in Melo, and two really good young core players that have been there for a while, and Dame and CJ McCollum. So I don't know. I mean, they've made one conference final, I think, and that was in 2018 when KD and the Warriors just kicked their
Yeah.
ass.
Yeah.
So I mean, to say I don't know if they're really, and the first one ranks is not going to cut anymore. I think Terry Stotts has been last seven or 8 seasons. They've been out in the first round in 6 or 7 of those seasons. So I don't know if they go out and make a trade for somebody, try to make a splash for agency, because they really just haven't seemed to have a good luck at trying to sell Portland to free agents. I don't know for whatever reason, because I mean Damian Lillard I think is one of the better players to not have an MVP to his name,
Yep.
and I think it's probably going to be sooner rather than later that he gets one.
Yeah. And people talking about Steph Curry being a potential candidate this year, I think Dame deserved more recognition last year for bringing his team into that seventh, eighth seed. Last year, averaging over 30 points a game. So I don't think he gets enough recognition. And like you said, it's probably due to being in Portland in a small market. So hopefully he gets some more recognition and some more superstars to join him, because that's all you're going to see right now in the NBA.
I know, for all the money. The last series in the West was the one-seeded Utah Jazz taking care of the eight-seeded Memphis Grizzlies in a gentleman's sweep of a five-game series. Memphis shocked the world
Yeah.
in Game One, put a
Yeah.
lot of people on notice with them taking or beating the Utah Jazz. Dylan Brooks locked down Donovan Mitchell, or Donovan
Yeah.
Mitchell didn't play. I'm sorry.
He didn't play the first game. Yeah.
So took a lot of heat for it. I mean, and then it was smooth sailing from there for Utah. So John Morant, I think we now know, is here to stay.
Yeah. He got there. He got to the playoffs right before Zion did, um, and I think that just proves a lot. He was averaging 30 points per game in this series, even though they lost the four straight after the win. But you're playing against the number one team in the league. I don't think a lot of people expected Memphis to pull off this upset. Utah really had in the bag ever once they started Donovan Mitchell. It was just it's over. They're too good of a team when they have a complete healthy roster. It's going to take a lot to bring them down. It's going to take a superstar team, like we mentioned, to take them down. So I think Utah is one right now, the heavy favorite to go to the finals in the West.
Yeah, I mean they are as deep as it gets. They can do it in the post. They can do it in the perimeter, and they can do the mid range. Just
Yep.
everywhere you look at is just a very good team. They can beat you everywhere. But I mean, I love this Memphis team because
Yeah.
they're young, and I think they're playing with house money to say the least, because they weren't even supposed to be in the playoffs, and I
No.
think they're the ninth seed, and then they got through the play-in and won it to make it to the eighth seed. So I think it's just a good accomplishment for them to get here, let alone win a game in the playoffs. But I'll tell you what, I think the Memphis Grizzlies are going to be having a home court advantage come 2021, 2022 playoffs.
Really? You think next year
I
they're
think
gonna
so.
be one of those top four
Chris
seeds?
Valanciunas, Mark Morris is going to be an all-star. He's played
Wow,
unbelievable
hot take
basketball.
here. Heard
Yeah,
it here
no big
again.
deal. No big deal. Let me hear it. No big
Put it
deal.
on the TikTok. Put it on the TikTok.
I think him, Jaron Jackson Jr., and John Morant are going to be a pretty good big three.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
and
if you get some good role players around the play, because those three are going to be starters, I hope, and you get a full season of Jaron Jackson Jr. this season.
yeah, and Jaren Jackson, right? He was drafted the same year, before Luka Doncic and Trey Young, or like in between them, I think. So Memphis, I feel like they want a lot out of Jaren Jackson Jr. So I think he's got really
How crazy is that draft day trade? Looking at it now, Luka Doncic for Trey Young.
that just completely changes both franchises' directions, right? They're both in the playoffs, but one team actually made it out of the first round this year. Surprisingly, not the team that we thought though.
Hmm. Yeah, so Malcolm being the nice guy he is, just spoiled that the Atlanta Hawks gentlemen sweep the New York Knicks in 5 games. Uh, I mean, you want to talk about cold blooded.
Yeah,
Trey Young
I
was
was
the
gonna
guy.
say.
Oh,
Yeah. And I think this series was going to be way closer than everyone expected. Trey Young coming out with on a mission, averaging 29 points and close to 10 assists a game, just doing everything he can to make his team win. Randall on the other side didn't really perform up to everyone's standards. He only averaged 18 points a game, but got 11.6 boards. Do you think this was the most underwhelming series?
absolutely
As
not. I love the
really,
whole. This is the best series to watch, personally.
really,
Whether it was the atmosphere or whether it was
yeah,
the
in
storyline.
MSG.
I don't know if it was the basketball that was the reason why this was the best series. But it was just a lot of fun to watch. If you want
Yeah,
to talk about like the atmosphere and the aura of Madison Square Garden in the playoffs, it definitely lived up to the hype. The fans were unbelievable. They were loud all throughout the 3 games that was in New York, and Trey Young was playing to his strengths and being the showman he is, just hucking it from the logo every time, splash, 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 and lobbing it to Capella all the time and John Collins. It's a great series to watch, and I hope the Knicks get back in the playoffs very, very soon because I want to see more MSG in the playoffs because it
y-
was rowdy.
yeah.
But you know what? Good coming out party for Derrick Rose because
I
Derrick
was gonna
Rose,
say,
I don't think started much of this at the regular season in the starting lineup and then got integrated into it after game 2. And he was the next best player offensively the whole series.
yeah, he came up big in those first few games. In the last game, he didn't perform as great when they were on the brink of elimination. I think the whole team kind of just fell apart. But like you said, the games leading up to that, he really stepped up big time, and I think he wants to run it back again next year. So hopefully, we'll see
Yeah,
more of
hopefully
D
he
Rose
takes his
starting.
his knee to the ground like he did in Chicago. But the Hawks are going to be playing the number 1 seeded Philadelphia Sixers after they gentlemen swept the Washington Wizards. I don't know what to say about Washington. I don't know if again if they came into this series thinking they're going to beat the Philadelphia 76ers because that people are giving a whole lot of respect to the 1 seeded Sixers going into this playoffs to get to the conference finals. But the Sixers took care of business without a problem. How do you like them going forward?
The Sixers, it's going to be difficult. I know we're probably like we're just a little bit behind, right? Just because the game started and everything. So they lost today to the Hawks, but I don't think that's much of an issue. I think with Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris, even him averaging a double double last series against Washington when Joel went out for a game or two there. I think he stepped up big too. So I don't think I hate the Sixers, right? But you got to give them respect. I think they're going to come out. They should, well, at least they should come out of this series against the Hawks. But it's only time will tell. I think Westbrook, though, in this series with the Wizards, played like Westbrook usually does, right? Getting his triple doubles, getting the team involved, not shooting great, but getting the team in the
Stereotypical
game.
Russell Westbrook.
Exactly, typical. But now he's out, just like the trend. Like as always, he's out of the playoffs early on. But I think the Sixers will have more of a tough matchup than they think with these Atlanta Hawks in the second round.
Mm-hmm. Just one thing too that I'm starting to pick up a trend on is that I think the all Kendall Jenner team I think could take the reins. I think very very well.
I think they could, honestly.
I mean, she must
Not
be
a
very
bad.
happy with herself. Good for her.
She's a good GM.
Oh, I think so. The Milwaukee Bucks are the only team to sweep
Yeah,
a team in the first round, and they did it against the Miami Heat. I think Miami did not stand a chance in any of the four games. None of them were
no,
close, except for the first one in overtime when Jimmy Butler single-handedly put that team on his back. And I think it's because there's no one stepped up around him. I mean, Bam Adebayo, if you want to talk about him getting, maybe not being
exactly.
100%, but I think it was a very underwhelming season for one Tyler Hero, who everyone loved last year.
In the bubble,
I don't think you barely heard his name at all during the whole
I
season.
heard. I think I heard Jack Harlow
I think
make a
that's
song
the
about him.
only time I've heard him was because he was on.
That's the only time I could hear Tyler Hero because he did not show up. The bubble Heat got exposed. Again, they beat the Bucks last year. They couldn't do it this year. Giannis stepped up big, getting 23 and a half and 15 boards, along with almost 8 assists per game. He was just stepping up big. Chris Middleton had some clutch moments in these games as well. And like you said, I think Bam just didn't decide to show up either. He didn't play extremely well, like everyone expected him to, and the series wasn't close. It wasn't fun to watch because Milwaukee just swept them. If you're a Milwaukee fan, it was amazing to watch. Every other fan, I don't think they're really tuned in for these games.
No, I think I watched game one overtime, and that's about it. Well, I
Exactly.
don't know I don't know how true this is, but I did hear that they might be testing that Jimmy Butler coffee for some PEDs because they were drinking a lot of that during the bubble playoffs in 2020. So I don't know, hey Jimmy Buckets, if you got a little something cooking on your coffee, give me a call. But the last series that we've yet to talk about is the Brooklyn Nets defeating the Boston Celtics in a gentleman's sweep of 5 games. I said that Jason Tatum's gonna probably have to average around 50 points per game. He averaged just over 30.
Just over 30. He did have a couple or like at least one 50-point night, and that's the game they won, I think. But the rest, it was just the trio and Cade. What do I talk about? The trio, DJ and Blake Griffin. They're all healthy. They're all playing great. I think Harden was the standout player for them, getting 27 points per game, 7.2 rebounds, and over 10 assists. He was doing everything. KD was just a slasher. Kyrie, when he stepped up, it was just a rotation of who would get the most points, right? As you kind of expect with this triple-headed monster, along with two former All Stars, two guys who are also in that LA
And
Lob
one
City
guy
era.
on the all Kendall Jenner team.
Yeah, Blake Griffin on the All Kendall Jenner team. So if you're dating Kendall Jenner, you have a real shot of making it far in these playoffs. Not gonna lie, you're not a bad player. But yeah, I know as a Celtics fan, kind of biased, thought they'd pull off 7 game, but obviously didn't happen. A lot of people expected a sweep. I'm happy they got to pull out one. And Kevin Durant giving some respect to Jason Tatum, saying he's already that elite type of player that's hard to defend at the age of 23. So future's bright in Boston. If you had Jalen Brown, I think they win one more game, but I think the Nets would still win this game, this series as well.
That just keeps Malcolm sleeping. KD sleeping.
Exactly. One more game. One more game.
No. It's that KD that said Jason Tatum.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
no, perfect. We got our superstar.
Jason Tatum.
Relax. Yeah, I mean, not to say that any of these games were blowouts or anything, but it was pretty juicy to see Kyrie back in Boston because the very classy Boston fans.
There was many occasions around the whole league, even Boston especially, but like with Russell Westbrook as well. Trey Young getting spit on at MSG. I think the fans they should be grateful that they're allowed back into the arenas. You don't want to ruin it. You don't want to say, "Hey, we're not gonna allow fans if this is the stuff that keeps happening." And many players chose to speak out against it because, like they said, they're not animals in cages. They're human beings too. Uh, you can't just be disrespecting them like that. But
I loved
it
it.
was awful to see. Yeah,
I loved it.
you loved it, of course you
Oh, of
do.
course, I love every second of it. You miss the fans, man. Like
I miss the fans, but I don't like miss the fans like
it's the
throwing shit
playoffs.
and
You know,
spitting
the refs
on Trey
care.
Young.
They care.
That's ridiculous.
They
That's
care.
ridiculous.
You didn't even know he spat on him.
He didn't know, but he did.
You didn't even know. No,
Yeah,
come on. It's all in good nature. I mean, you don't hate the person. You don't hate the human being. You hate the basketball player.
yeah. I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Rather than
Um,
not that they take it to heart because they did. But I mean, it's all within the lines because they're not doing it at, you know, on the parking lot on Third Avenue trying to egg this guy's car. This is on the basketball court. So,
Yeah.
and they do
And
it because they're damn good basketball players.
what's that stat? I saw a stat it was today. It was about previous it was since 1998. This is going to be the first finals without the Lakers, Golden State, Miami, and one other team. I can't remember which team it was.
Well, this is the first finals since 2010 without no LeBron or Curry.
Exactly. And that's another big stat too. And so with these teams remaining, the last time I'm gonna go through the last time they won a finals, right? The Jazz, Clippers, Nuggets, Suns, and Nets have never won an NBA championship. The Nets won the ABA in 1974 and 76. The 76ers won in 83. The Hawks, last time they won it was 58, and the Bucks was 1971. So you're gonna have a team that hasn't won for a very long time, winning the NBA championship this year, and I think that's good for the NBA because you don't want to keep seeing these. I feel like some people, obviously, those diehard fans, want to see their team keep winning, but there's other fans, there's other teams, and other markets that need to grow, and I think it's about time that another team steps up and takes the mantle here, just like Toronto did against Golden State a few years ago. Um, and really helping develop basketball in Canada. I think it's going to help develop whichever team really needs it. Like my favorite, I think is going to be the Denver Nuggets. I hope the Denver Nuggets win it this year now. And they will potentially grow basketball in Denver and in their state and everything. So it's going to be fun to see a team that hasn't won recently to win it this year.
Yeah, I'll leave you with one other stat, and I think it's the first. It's gonna be the first time in 2000 since two could be, excuse me, the first time since 2011 that a guy not named Curry, LeBron, or Kawhi to not to win the NBA championship
That's ridiculous.
if the Clippers don't win.
Yeah.
So I mean, keep your eyes peeled for that. The second round series looks like a little sportgasm to me. So I know a couple of the games have already are underway, but thanks to Luka Doncic and Kawhi Leonard's greatness, we had to wait till Game 7 of this series to be done.
Yeah.
But round two is now completely underway, and next week it's gonna be Euro 2021, baby, or I guess Euro
Oh,
2020 for copyright issues. But just listen to your boy because I'm taking the Dutch to the chip. So until then, it's Jacob.
and Colm.